Democrats have been pushing forward H.R. 1. Now, you haven't heard a lot about H.R. 1 because H.R. 1 is not going anywhere in the Senate, presumably. But H.R. 1 is this sweeping piece of voter legislation that essentially federalizes all elections. And what it really does is it makes it easier to enshrine the worst sort of voting practices from across the country. It takes like all the worst parts of voting practice from various states, and then it enshrines them and requires them at the federal level. Heritage Foundation had a good breakdown of H.R. 1.
My job should involve me giving shout outs to other TYT content creators. Brett already did a great job of highlighting some historic examples of voter suppression aimed at black people. Check this video out. But I want to focus on what Ben Shapiro mentioned, the Heritage Foundation's breakdown of H.R. 1. Now, when I saw this part on the Heritage Foundation website about 15 days of mandatory early voting, I was like, cool. People who make low wages at an hourly rate and can't afford to take a day off, even to vote, or even needs to take 2 weeks to schedule a day, gets 15 days to figure things out, seeing how Election Day isn't a federal holiday yet. But the Heritage Foundation says voters who vote early don't have the same information as those who vote on Election Day, missing late-breaking developments that could affect their choices. I realized that there were no citations to any claim I was reading, no links to prove that H.R. 1 could increase, say, election fraud. But there's a Heritage Foundation election fraud database. And I gotta admit that when I saw 1,300 plus cases of election fraud, I was like, ugh. That was a lot of fraud in the 2020 election. But nah, that's not what it is or what they're claiming. This is a database tracking election fraud all the way back to the early 80s, including instances of fraudulent use of absentee ballots, ineligible voting, and buying votes, amongst others. Of course, I looked into Ohio, and since the year 2000, there have been 52 cases in 21 years. So many state and local elections since then. To be fair, here's an example saying John Saylor ordered absentee ballots sent to the home of a friend and then filled them out as votes for himself. After winning the seat of the first ward councilman in Fairfield, Ohio, the election results were called into question and an investigation was opened. He was sentenced to 24 months imprisonment for these charges. This case specifically is the exception, not the rule. A good portion of these were isolated, and I couldn't help but wonder who some of these people were cheating for and why there weren't more. Then I remembered that there's more than one way to cheat. Ain't that right, Jim Jordan? Look at this man's gerrymandered district. Redraw the map, Ohio. Heritage Foundation says this database is not an exhaustive or comprehensive list. This database is intended to demonstrate the vulnerabilities in the election system and the many ways in which fraud is committed. But one underrated thing I gather is that all of these people listed were caught. I can see if the argument was that there's no election fraud, but that's not it. The prevailing notion is that it's not widespread, and Heritage Foundation is proving that's the case. For Rebel HQ, I'm Jeff Wiggins. My architect knows Japanese. For more from the Young Turks, stay right here. If you want to see content from yours truly, click on the hashtag below. I can also be found on all socials at He Gon' Be Alright. Thanks for watching.